Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick, Taylor Riggs, I remembered at this time. Katie Greifeld in for Caroline Hyde. We're counting you down to the closing bell. Here to help take us beyond the bell. We welcome our global simulcast with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec, and we welcome our audiences across Bloomberg Television, radio, as well as on YouTube. Carol, to parse the crucial moments of the day. A day I don't know if we can extrapolate too much long-term out of what's happening today, but certainly a down day to be sure.
Yeah, very different from the tone last week. And I just want to tell you, Taylor, that sometimes I forget my husband's name, but I never forget the dog's name. I'm just going to put that out there.
No, I hear Romaine only hurts the ones he loves, so I'm hanging in there.
I will say, and Romaine pointed this out, Homebuilders were something that I've been watching too. I mean, if you're looking for where there's been some gains today, certainly the Homebuilders, it's up about 0.5%, but have been on quite a tear, 10-11% higher since about mid-June, Tim.
Yeah, but if we take a step back and look at the S&P 500 as far as today's trade, down about 0.4%, really searching for direction for most of the day. It did move between gains and losses more than a dozen times, but then after about 1:20 Wall Street time, it was firmly lower, and we seem to be, kind of hanging around, not quite the lows, bouncing off the lows from earlier in the session.
Yeah, some decent 1% losses on NASDAQ 100. Earlier, the Russell 2000, the stocks, and the transportation index, Katie, were all in the green. But now, of course, Russell 2000, only the major one, really here to hang in there. And I think one thing that you've really been noting is the impact of higher yields. And I wonder if we're going to start to have some of those conversations again about valuations with yields rising. This sort of a classic day when equities are lower.
And whether those lower valuations open up bargains when it comes to M&A. Maybe that's what we're seeing today with Robinhood and FTX, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I was taking a look a little bit earlier, of course, at that big drop in market cap valuation for Robinhood, a $59-60 billion valuation a year ago. Now, even with today's gains, still only about $8 billion. Well, not gaining today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average going to finish the day lower by about 0.2% as we wait for these numbers to settle. The S&P 500 camped out right now at 3,900. That puts it down by about 0.3%. And the NASDAQ Composite right around 11,502, down 0.9%. All of these numbers are pretty much right around the lows of the day. And the Russell 2000 kind of bucking the trend. It is going to finish the day higher, only by about 6 points at about 17,771 and change. That's higher by about 0.3%, but like the other indices, that's also the low, right around the low of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to call it a teenager trading day because it feels like a lot of angst in terms of how we traded today. Right, it felt uncomfortable, and even so, the S&P 500, 235 names, Katie, were higher, 265 lower, 3 unchanged. So you still had some gaining in today's session, even though it felt not so great.
Teenager trading day. I was definitely angsty and uncomfortable as a teenager.
Weren't we all?
But in any case,
No.
It was a pretty rough day for the market to that point. You did have some winners. You had the energy sector up 2.7%. That was your biggest gainer. Utilities saw some love as well. But beyond there, I mean, healthcare, a little bit of a bid, but it was a lot of red when it comes to the sector level. If we look at some of the biggest losers, retailing, consumer durables, all seeing some losses there, approaching 2% when it came to retailing. But Carol, really, it was a down day overall in the market.
All right, but I did find some really cool gainers. I thought about Romaine big time in this because it was a little not household names that really came up on my radar. AFIB is the ticker, Acutus Medical. This is a company, it's a nano cap market cap, $29 million, medical equipment company for patients with heart arrhythmia. And their company's AcuCross system got FDA clearance and commercial launch. So that stock was up 88% at the close, up as much as 125% at its highs. Let's get to another one, not a household name. It's called Portland General. POR is the ticker. Electric utility, this market cap a little bit bigger, $4.4 billion. It was up as it was announced that this company will replace Digital Turbine in the S&P Midcap 400. So this stock was up about 5%. And then here's a household name, Qualcomm. This stock was up about 1.7%. We saw the semiconductor names moving in today's trade. This was among the top in the NASDAQ 100. You saw a pop in those chip makers after a Supreme Court ruling. It was Apple versus Qualcomm in this case. Apple rejected by the Supreme Court in that Qualcomm patent challenge. So that lifted the whole sector, and Qualcomm among them, Tim.
Carol, you had to dig deep for some of those gainers today.
I did.
The micro caps. All right, go in there. Let's talk about some of the decliners. We check in with the airlines again. We got Spirit Airlines, ticker SAVE, finishing the day down by 8%. The latest in the battle for Spirit Airlines, sending shares of the ultra low-cost carrier lower today. Frontier Frontier, late on Friday, increased its cash option for the offer. Along with stock, it values the airline at about $2.6 billion. Remember last week, JetBlue said it would be willing to pay $3.7 billion for Spirit. But then you got the shareholder advisory firm, ISS, coming out today saying that the Frontier offer is, quote, far superior to what JetBlue offers, even though it's, $1 billion less.
Yeah, I thought the market reaction here was interesting because not only did you see the big drop in Spirit, but I think Frontier was also down like 11%. And I think they have the big vote. Apparently, it's supposed to come up on Thursday. It's hard to understand why they would think the JetBlue offer would be superior strictly from a financial perspective. But
maybe it's because of from a regulatory perspective. So there's more of a chance of this deal getting through with these combined two ultra low cost carriers, because this is a highly regulated industry, and they got to get it past the regulators in order for this to get approved. Does it mean lower ticket prices? That's what the CEOs say. So we'll see.
No.
They need to come down, right?
Really
Come on.
All right, just testing you guys out there.
The COVID or post-COVID speaking. Anyway.
If oil prices come down, maybe that
Do
would
we
be the
get to
case.
move on to yields yet? Are you
what are
still
yields?
on
Did yields do
decliner?
anything?
Coin. Well, I do want to hit on coin. Shares closing the day down lower by 11%.
We got all day.
Yeah, 78% year to date. A couple pieces of news. There was a downgrade over at Goldman Sachs, but then of course we had the FTX news for our own Annie Massar and company coming out today, essentially saying that FTX, of course, is interested in Robinhood, a competitor to Coinbase.
Do I get to go now?
Go, Taylor.
My
go.
turn.
Just
Yields,
take the baton.
Double header. 2s and 5s. 2s at 11:30, 5s at 1 p.m. Weak and then weaker coming in after that. And sort of leads me to believe that if you're getting sort of some of these big tails on these auction and yields are rising, was that not enough to entice demand coming into this market? Is there expectations, Katie, that yields are still going to climb higher from here? Not a whole lot of news here, but we're going to get some decent Fed speak this week. And I'm not sure the narrative will change, except that looking at hopefully some anchoring again of some of these inflationary expectations. But nonetheless, you're getting some decent yields up here really across the curve.
And it is interesting to stick on the auctions a little bit more. I mean, now that the Fed has left the building, you are starting to see more of those tails that had already been a theme so far this year. It's the same thing that you're seeing in the corporate credit market, that basically these issuers are having to offer bigger concessions to get people to buy the debt. I don't know, Romaine, I'm fascinated.
I am fascinated, but I'm also fascinated by some of the resiliency there. I mean, look, I think you can point to a lot of economic indicators that would suggest that we are headed for an economic downturn, but you're not really seeing that necessarily reflected in some of those credit spreads just yet. Even the ones that have widened aren't widening to the levels that we would normally see in a recessionary environment.
That's a good sign. And we just talked with Aaron Kennan, and he was just talking about, too, that some of the easing in some of the inflationary pressures that we're seeing out there, whether it's shipping rates and, go through the metals market. We've certainly seen commodities overall, even oil, come down. So whether that will help the Fed, Tim, ultimately get to what it needs to do and maybe, stave off a recession, fingers crossed to that.
He's not ready yet to call a bottom, though.
No, he is not.
He said multiple times, a reminder that you don't typically see a stock market bottom until the Fed stops raising rates and indeed starts lowering them again. So he says, bear market rally perhaps, but not yet ready to call a bottom. He says valuations have got to come down.
Yeah, and we're going to get Nike earnings after the bell a little bit later today, and I'm actually really interested in this one because it's been really resilient, and we talk about its surprise to the upside for something like the past 7 or 8 quarters, and you kind of wonder that if a company like that has done so well at managing its supply chain, done so well with connecting consumers, can't sort of hold its own in this environment, then what hope is there for some of the other retailers?
Fed speak never ends, earnings season never ends. The Nike earnings will be very interesting. I'm excited too. 4:15, but I talked about this on Friday, but the Fed wants to see the consumer crack. The fact that consumers have been so resilient. Absolutely. How do you cool demand? What does cooling demand look like?
I did read a note that instead of a Fed put, there's a Fed call, that the Fed does not want these big sort of loosening of financial conditions because that makes consumers feel better, will start to spend, and they're trying to stop that to help the supply-demand inflation imbalances. First time I've read a note like that. It was interesting.
Is it stop it or is it simply to moderate, I guess, some of those
Moderate.
I think there's a big difference. So.
Yeah, well, and we'll see, we get a lot of economic data points, consumer sentiment, confidence. We're going to see what's going on with home sale prices. We've certainly seen them come down, or at least some concerns in terms of sales coming down because of those higher mortgage rates. So we'll see what it says about the strength of the consumer this week.
Is it too soon for us to start talking about next week's jobs numbers that come out during a holiday week?
Why aren't they on Friday?
Yes, we need to get through July 4th. Can we just do that?
I don't know why they're doing it during a holiday week. I'm not going to be here, and
They always do it, Tim.
I'm
But
bummed
it's
out.
July 1st. It's Friday.
No, it's the week
The
after
data
that, right?
never stops.
Yeah.
This is important stuff.
All right, has everybody seen the Top Gun sequel?
And by the way,
I just
Tim,
want to
just so you know, July 1st isn't actually a holiday, so you could come into work that day.
All right, noted. Thank you. I'll be here. I think I will be here that day.
Okay.
I don't know.
Just pointing that out.
Yeah.
I mean, the 4th is on a Monday.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right.
Okay.
Are we done? And we all know it's Taylor. Okay, we got to run. All right, that's going to do it for. Wait, did you have something more?
No. Okay. Say goodbye.
All right. That'll do it for our cross-platform coverage. Radio, TV, YouTube, we do it all. It's called Beyond the Bell. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow.